Coming up on Newshub Late, Donald Trump makes history again, guilty of 34 felonies. Are we really better off with tax cuts? And it's our final show. We look back on 3 decades of late night news. Join us next.
You can watch this bulletin in 30 minutes, and in just 10, you can get personalised advice for Milford's KiwiSaver plan on our website. Milford, bringing you Newshub Late.
Tonight on Newshub Late, Donald Trump becomes the first US president convicted of a crime after a jury finds him guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records. Are we really better off with the tax cuts? We crunch some of the numbers. And flight delays and cancellations as a Jetstar plane slid off the runway at Christchurch Airport. Also tonight, this is the very last late news, so we look back before we say goodnight for the final time. Kia ora, good evening. Well, Donald Trump has made history again. He is the first former president to become a convicted felon. The word guilty was read to a New York court 34 times as a jury in Trump's hush money trial returned 34 unanimous verdicts. Trump immediately called the trial a disgrace and blamed it all on President Biden. And Biden is now warning America that the only way to defeat Trump is at the ballot box. US correspondent Mitch McCann reports.
A historic day in America. A former president of the United States, now a convicted felon.
There were no television cameras in the courtroom. Felon or not, Trump will be the Republican nominee for president. Trump will be sentenced on the 11th of July, just 4 days before the Republican National Convention.
Well, the day after unveiling her first budget, the finance minister has been forced to admit that the number of families likely to get the full benefit of her tax plan is fewer than expected. And officials are warning thousands of families will be a little bit worse off as a result of a quirk in our tax system. Here is political reporter Amelia Wade.
Have a good day.
A buoyant post-budget PM.
You make an optical illusion. Oh my goodness, that's pretty clever.
Though National could stand accused of creating an illusion of its own.
An average household in New Zealand could get up to $102 a fortnight and then entitled with...
A routine flight with a less than routine finish. Juliet Speedy, Newshub.
Well, coming up, the Māori King wants unity, saying that Te Pāti Māori's idea of a Māori parliament frightens him. That's next on Newshub Late. Plus, Southland's big baby surprise. 4 little tuatara emerge from the soil on a demolition site. Welcome back to Newshub Late. This is a live shot of Auckland, where right now it is 14 degrees. Tomorrow it's looking partly cloudy, but with a high of 18, and we will have more weather for you later in the show. Well, any plans for an independent Māori parliament, as called for by Te Pāti Māori yesterday, might already be crushed as the Māori King, Tūhaitia, revealed the idea scares him. Around 2,000 joined a who's who of Māoridom at a national hui in Hastings today, where, as Mike McRoberts reports, the theme was more about unity than separation.
Bathed in morning sunlight, or Mahu Marae is a shining example of what can happen when iwi come together.
Because they were found in the former Brothers Island enclosure, a species of tuatara that hadn't previously produced young in an enclosure. Well, coming up, it is almost time for us to say goodbye. But first, we're going to take a look at the life and legacy of the late news slot here on 3 and some of its most iconic moments.
This is Nightline.
Now, tonight is a little bit historic for the late news, which has a long and proud history stretching back over 3 decades. It began as a way to keep people employed here at 3, but then, well, it took off, becoming an integral and iconic part of the DNA of this network. So here is Perry Wilton looking through the late news kaleidoscope.
Thanks for being with us tonight.
Late news on TV3's been keeping Kiwis up since 1990. Bursting onto our screens as Nightline, it took TV sets by storm. It was the news with a twist.
This woman is using imagery of a fish for her piece of satisfaction.
And where many now familiar faces began.
Kia ora, good evening.
Samantha Hayes was New Zealand's youngest ever TV host when she started in 2007, preceded by countless household names. Iconic presenters let loose on the graveyard shift.
We were sort of forgotten about a lot of the time, so unless there was a BSA complaint, of which there were probably many over the time, we were sort of left to our own devices.
There was, of course, the breaking news.
I got woken up in the middle of the night by Angus Gillies, who was the Nightline producer, who said, something's happening, you need to turn on the television. And when I did, I just could not believe what I was seeing.
And during the lighter moments...
Leo! The fax machine would just go crazy.
Reporters like music broadcasting legend Dylan Tate given the chance to spread their wings in the TV3 elevator.
Flattening this tune. Very hummable.
And he wasn't the only one.
No one was really checking anything. And we got away with some crazy shit. I mean, I talked to a guy who was like a dolphin.
How did this whole thing start with the dolphin?
She began doing things like raking her teeth very lightly along my arms and legs, which produced an indescribably erotic sensation for me.
And talking to David over Zoom in LA, being filmed by George Murahidi, who's been filming with TV3 since it all started. One can't help but go down memory lane and remember all the late night history that's happened in this building. It's the same reception that's been here since the beginning.
You've come about the jobs.
The same reception that hosted host Belinda Todd, along with the Grim Reaper, when TV3 went into receivership.
I'm Tukurangi Morgan. You can have me for $1,000 a week, plus all the land that was taken from my tribe.
The receivathon was just a month after Nightline launched. When were you last in the building?
Oh, decades.
Todd saying this piece in particular caused, well, chaos.
We were just running with scissors, with our hair on fire, and no one expected anything of it. So we did what we liked.
And behind camera staff did too. Producers then.
The big international story that's developing that you're going to get first crack at.
Still working at Newshub, 30 years on.
And look, Perry, I'm still here, and we're so broke that reporters are having to record me on their cell phone.
But it wasn't just late night. Late News on 3 went through many iterations. There was the Paul Henry Show.
See, already I'm entertained.
Newsworthy. And of course, Newshub Late. So with many fond memories.
Don't you guys ever not?
What's today? Tuesday?
On Nightline.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, yeah, good evening. That's normally what I say.
For the last time, Perry Wilton, Newshub Late.
So many iconic moments, so much crazy stuff, as David Farrier said. Watching that story and thinking about this program today, Kate, I was thinking it has been a launching pad for so many TV talents, hasn't it?
One thing I love about that show, and after 21 years walking into that reception as well, God, it was such a great story, Perry. It's just that at that time of night there was a permission just for some anarchic behaviour that I don't think the New Zealand public had been witness to. And I know when I first started here, it just had that feeling that, not that they could get away with anything, but if they were going to give it a decent crack.
Well, they had a very light touch, I think, management, didn't they, with this program? You were forgotten about until it got very, very dicey. But that was what informed the culture here, isn't it? Much of what went on Nightline informed the culture of the whole organisation in some way or another. It was wild and sort of anything went.
That's right. I couldn't agree with you more. It was that edge to it. We were kind of the scruffy, constantly going into receivership, kind of nothing to lose. So let's just give it a crack and see how we go. And I think that brings an interesting person into the building for a start. And then if you are trusting people at this desk in whatever shape or form it was, and honestly, if Belinda Todd's the one that's going to kick it off and you just follow in her wake, there's something about it that is essentially Kiwi, but it's also looking back through that, it's just essentially female. I mean, it was just so amazing to see how empowering it was for so many female broadcasters coming into television to tell stories.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love that it has delved into the darker sides of our culture.
Oh, yeah.
As David Farrier explained there with the dolphin, for example. But that stuff is real, and it's relevant, and it's good to see it represented somewhere, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And what I love as well is you are getting the day's news still encapsulated in half an hour, and all the important stuff in what we call the first break, the second break, the third break. And the third break was the one where all bets were off. And, you know, the likes of Dylan Tate, but going back to Michael Barron and Nikki Oma back in the day, who pioneered, from my perspective, such inspirational ways to tell entertainment stories. And it also meant that entertainment stories gained in not just popularity but importance, and then it got elevated into the 6 o'clock news as well. So from my perspective, incredibly inspiring through the ages. But just for the viewers, we were able to, I mean, Farrier particularly and Dylan Tate, just to furrow away into New Zealand and find these fascinating characters and stories and artists and creatives, and, you know, take them to the whole country on a national broadcaster. It's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely, and they did that. And you are included in this too, Kate. Before it was trendy to do it, before, you know, it became fashionable to like the arts, this is a place where those people had a platform, isn't it?
And we're celebrated for that. And what I think we underappreciate a little bit now, it's not the homogenisation of content necessarily, but it's having people with a passion for telling those stories to find the people that want their stories to be told. And it's very different from the people that don't want their stories to be told, and they're often in the first break of the news. And it's a way of also illustrating it in such a visual way, so that people can hear it and listen to it. It's more visceral. It's not a print story. It's, you know, it's the band playing. But also the whole way of crafting a story using your pictures to tell it, and use your talent to tell it. It was just fantastic. I think it's, I mean, we've got a full month of this to come, and a goodbye to a show like this over the years, across live from the Oscars and the BAFTAs into late news. It was that one at the end of the Oscars after 22 days on my feet where I just thought, let's cross live into the late news, and I may have had a few drinks. It's hard to say.
We've all been there.
And it really is a really special show, and so many amazing people have sat at that desk and presented it over the years. So a privilege to have ever been involved. But it's always time to say goodbye at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but we are lucky to have been a part of it, and thanks for coming in here to chat through it.
Thanks for asking me. Thanks.
Well, let's take a look now at the weather.
Tomorrow's weather brought to you by nature. Turn it to power by Meridian.
Okay, well, I have the honour of being the last person to be sitting in this seat, so I want to take a minute to recognise all of those talents who have sat here before me. Nearly all of them were women who shaped this program, and many of them have gone on to shape our industry. This program has been an incubator of talent, a place of pure creativity. It has covered the nation's big moments. It has caused the most trouble for management over the years, and I know that we've all been very proud to be a part of it. So on behalf of everyone who has hosted, who has reported, filmed, edited, directed, produced and watched, thanks for making a little bit of history here on 3, on this plucky little late night news slot. For the final time, I am Rebecca Wright. Good night.
we're committed to actively pursuing strong investment results for our clients. Milford bringing you Newshub Late.